Hey the berries, welcome to the patch 14.1 notes. So this is going to be the whole new season that's starting on January the 10th, 2024. Now if you're new or returning, there's a lot changing in this season, so I do advise you to pay attention to as much of the notes as you can. I'm going to be going it through a brief, like kind of as best as I can, overview as a support main. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Bizzleberry, Hitmaster on 2 accounts on season 13, and I always provide like educational content and stuff like that. So for this season as well coming up, I'm going to be covering all of these support champions and doing new guides and item guides. Items are going to be a big thing in season 14 as well. Along with items that are coming along, we're going to have map changes. Also, is going to be a big one too. They're changing a lot of brush layouts, a lot of how the actual map like physically is as well. So it's going to make the game feel really weird. Honestly, I've probably played about 30-40 games on PBE, which is like the public test kind of servers, and even I'm, after like 30 games, was like kind of struggling still in terms of getting used to the feel. Particularly bot side of River feels really weird. But I'll go through as much of this as I can in terms of like a support perspective, and then at the end I'm gonna give my kind of, it won't be like a proper tier list because I want to do a proper tier list for 14.2 because there's way too much changing here, and I expect the meta to change every few days, particularly in like the high elo. But I want to kind of give like my thoughts on what is likely going to be looking strong going into the start of the season, and then 14.2 we can like proper sit down and have a look and see what's actually like broken, because there's going to be like a few items here that are going to be substantially kind of broken, and whether intentionally or not, and that's going to influence champion win rates. So 14.2 will probably be like, you know, where we can actually sit down and look at the meaty potatoes and get through it properly. But so for now, this is kind of like a preview to what I'm kind of expecting to be strong. So going into actual 14.1, as you can see, there's a lot of things there. There's one champion change, and that's Hui, which is the newest champion. We'll look at that. We'll also be looking at all the different things. There's Baron changes, Infernal Dragon changes, map changes, Herald changes, Voidborn monsters being introduced to the game, and Voidgrubs and Void mites. New and adjusted is, I can't even pronounce that word. There's a bunch of new items basically. Contrad is, I can't, my dyslexia will not allow me to pronounce that. But anyway, there's lots of different items here. Some here are support items as well. And there are some support main starter item changes that are quite nice actually. And if you're a bit confused by it, I'll give you a quick rundown and explain what that item is about. Seems that we're going to have a Prestige Dragonmancer Rakan skin as well. So, nice. Okay, so the season officially starts at midday on January the 10th, depending on what server you are. Well, it's the same for all the servers pretty much. So yeah, do take note of that. Okay, so these are the new kind of mobs that are spawning instead of the first Herald. These Voidgrubs, Void mites are new to League. And basically there will be 2 spawnings of these. So there'll be a 3, and then a few minutes later there'll be another 3. And this is a buff that lasts the entire game for everyone on the team. So it's kind of like having a Drake buff, and you know how that's kind of like those stats that you get from Drake are permanent. But these guys, if the jungler gets a killing blow on one of these like little purple dudes, that's permanent for your team. And what that does is does true damage to turrets. Okay, so when you auto attack at the turret, then you're going to be doing like a little bit of extra true damage as a dot. Now, if your team is able to secure 5 or a total 6 of these purple dudes, when you hit the turrets, it will spawn those little white dudes, the little grubs, and they will tank turret shots for you. And they will help take the tower down super fast as well. So it's actually really important that the enemy team doesn't get a hold of 5 or 6 of these. So that's the thing in the top lane that's going to be contested, which will take the edge off bot lane. So they're trying to make top lane a bit more involved. So yeah. So 3 Voidgrubs spawn at 5 minutes into the game. Each Voidgrub will spawn 4 Void bites every 12 seconds in combat. So that's whatever. Voidgrubs can respawn once per game, as each one of the has their own individual respawn timer of 4 minutes. So you can kill one of these and leave the other 2 up, and then the one that you killed will respawn in 4 minutes time. So if a jungler's there on time at 5 minutes, so you can have 5 minutes is the first 3, and then around about 9 minutes will be like the next spawning of those. Follow alert going off. Thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel. On death, Voidgrubs will give other nearby Voidgrubs a 25% health buff, so they're going to be a little bit harder to kill. So it's going to be easy to kill the first one, then after that it's going to take longer to kill the other ones, so it will give time for the enemy team to kind of react and try and kind of counter what's going on up there. So it's going to be a big objective up there essentially, and then once your team hits the 5 stacks of the buff, you'll spawn 1 Void Mite to help you when attacking towers with a 15-second cooldown. At 6 stats, the amount of Void Mites increases to 2. Void Mites summoned by players have the same stats as a melee minion, but with 40% less HP and 50% more movement speed. So basically extra pushing power when you're taking down his turrets. Also, I had a game on PBE where we had, I think, 5 or 6 of these stacks. I think it was 5. And we had aced the enemy team, but we didn't have a minion wave nearby. But because we went up to the turret, we all each individually spawned a Void Mite, and then that also made it so that the turret wasn't necessarily as tanky. So the Void Mites were basically tanking the turret for us, which was pretty funny that we didn't even need the minions there in order to take that down as a group. So that's more information. So this is the revamped Rift Herald. You're going to see a lot of people doing some dumb stuff with Rift Herald, okay? The first week or 2, even yourself may be included as well. You're going to make some weird mistakes, okay? So when you kill Rift Herald, you now have the, when you pick it up, kill Rift Herald and then you pick up the little emblem thing as a trinket. Now when you spawn Rift Herald, you have the option to climb inside her. Yeah, that sounded a lot worse out loud than in my head. Anyway, you basically get to do like a sign charge. I don't know if they've got a graphic for that here. No, they don't. So basically you go inside her and then you then do a sign-like charge, and you can direct where she goes. If you hit a wall or terrain, she will still take health damage, like lose a huge chunk of HP damage, like health, as if she had hit a turret like normally, like a normal rift. But means that you can direct her and like change where she's going to knock up enemy players instead. So you can kind of use this as like an engage on players rather than just on turrets, which is quite interesting. So if you or an allied teammate summon the Rift Herald, one player, either the user or the teammate, can right-click the Herald in order to hop onto Shelly. Right-clicking any direction while channeling onto a Herald will allow the player to pick where Herald will start charging. While charging, players can steer the Rift Herald while she charges forward, similar to Sion's ultimate. The Rift Herald receives 1 use of charge when summoned, which is consumed as soon as the player hops into Herald. In the event a nearby enemy tower or inhibitor is destroyed, Herald will receive an additional charge. This charge and cooldown is displayed on the Rift Herald's health bar. The charge lasts up to 14 seconds, by the way. Yeah. You can charge from a massive distance away, starting at 150 movement speed and ramping up to 600 movement speed over 5 seconds. The charge will end upon collision with a structure or terrain, reducing the Herald's health by 66%, and ejecting the player 200 plus 75% of the player's attack range units in the opposite direction of the charge. I think that basically means like if you're ranged, you're going to get yeeted further away, so a bit easier to get away from it rather than just being plopped right next down to a bunch of melee units. In the event Herald's charge hits a live tower, the ejection distance is increased, so you get to go further away if you hit a turret. If a player steers the Rift Herald through enemies, including champions, the enemy receives 250 true damage and knocked airborne. So it could be pretty nice if you're playing with a Yasuo here. If a player steers the Rift Herald into an enemy structure, a bonus 2000 plus damage based on average champion level, damage will be dealt to structure. 5 plus the number of hunger of void stacks of the user. Void mites will be spawned to attack the tower, and the player will gain a temporary shield. So basically, like, Herald is like cracked. It's giga buff, basically, essentially, this patch. So we have these Voidborn blue buff and red buffs now, and Scuttle. So what this means is after 20 minutes, when your team kills like this void blue buff, every single member on your team that is alive will get blue buff. Cool, huh? So no more fighting over blue buff. Your entire team will get blue buff. Same with red as well. Your entire team that is alive at the time when killing the void blue buff or red buff will get the buff. Doesn't matter where you are on the map. Okay, so it's really cool. What else have we got here? We've got lots more things as well. Okay, Scuttle, Voidborn Scuttle will basically do like a massive kind of vision area rather than just like the little one that usually does. The Baron Asher also now has 3 different phases. I'm going to be honest, I can't remember which phase is which. But also she can change the terrain around her. Did he have? Yeah. So this is like Baron number 1. And then Baron number 2 is like a little wall in front of her. And then Baron number 3 is crazy. Look at this. Baron number 3. So yeah, there's a lot of different variations of Baron as well. So it's going to change up in the game. Also, their attack variations are different as well per engage. But yeah, I don't know. Should be interesting. Lots of different fights now going to be happening around the Baron buff. So we've got terrain changes. So this is top lane. So top lane is different. So you see that you got the pixel brush now in like this section here. So there's no brush along the left-hand side of the wall. I believe that this bit here as well is added. So this whole curve boomerang shaped wall has been added. So there used to be just like a kind of like a straight line from this brush to the turret. That's been kind of filled in a little bit. It's kind of scary if you're looking to go through because there's double brushes here now. Also should make level 1 invades also like kind of scary for both teams. I believe, did this wall get moved up? This wall might have been moved up slightly as well. This gap, can't remember fully. Not 100% sure about that. But the main change is this one here on the right. This boomerang blade kind of shape and this pixel brush here. Mid lane, these brushes on the side have been pushed back. That's like probably the biggest one to help them not get ganked as easily, and will make it so that immobile champions are more likely to be able to lane and not die. There is a slight change here though. Like if you notice that there's an opening now on the turret wall, so to the left of the blue turret, the left of the red turret there as well if you're facing that way. There's a gap there to potentially look for a tower dive if they're under the turret. So you don't have to like hex tech flash or flash over a wall now. So engaged support champions are going to have a more interesting time looking for a potential tower dive onto mid lane. But ganking the lane when they're in the lane is going to be a little bit harder. Because there isn't, you know, this brush isn't covering as deep. Usually where this water is, like connecting to the land, that's usually where the brush was, but it's been knocked back quite a fair chunk now. Now we're going to bot lane. Bot lane has probably, I would say this has changed more than top, to be honest. So you've got this pixel brush in the middle, so that you haven't got the brush now connecting to this right-hand side wall. You've got this new pathway breaking into near this turret, the red side turret. So that used to be completely kind of like walled off. Yeah, those are the two main things. So it's going to make it, if you're playing on red side, it should make it easier to defend bot lane. Because what would normally happen, right, is say you're playing up against a Rek'Sai or a Kayn, someone that can go through walls. You weren't able to get easy vision in the equivalent of where like this new tri brush is for bot lane. You would be like halfway up the lane and then you just get ganked. Whereas now you can put a ward in this tri brush and can kind of preemptively see a little bit earlier when you're going to be ganked by an assassin. So you'll be able to retreat slightly earlier. It could make all the difference in saving you, to be honest. So I think overall this is kind of like a decent ganking nerf to junglers. And it's going to try and keep junglers occupied on the map to make them do objectives. Particularly more so now around that top side of the map with those little grubs and the new Shelly and stuff. There's a lot of things to do now top side. So expect the bot lane to be a lot more 2v2 orientated. I think, you know, even though like this opening is easy to defend, if you are under your turret again, it's going to make tower dives easier. I think that's one of the big things to take note of though. This patch is like it being tower dove looks a bit easier coming from the flank if you're already under the turret. Like the amount of time, if you remember what it used to be like, say if you wanted to tower dive red turret from the side, you don't have to go up the river, back in, and then down again. Whereas now it's the path is much quicker. And if you have control of this tri-brush as well, then the distance isn't really that far at all in order to actually make the tower dive happen. Yeah, it looks a little bit more exposed here too. So be interesting to see how teams utilize that. But expect actual 2v2s in the bot lane now. I'm hoping that it's going to be a bit more like the laning phase is actually going to be like laning phase, and the jungles is just going to have to like do PvE objectives. That's what I'm kind of hoping. But we'll see how it goes. But I expect more fights to start happening topside for sure. We could, I mean, in terms of that though as well, right? If those grubs become super important, you could end up seeing a meta shift here as well with bot lane going top, just to make sure, like, to help make it harder for enemy junglers to take those grubs. So there is a chance that AD carry and support will go top. Maybe after first recall could be possible to ensure that grubs are taken and secured. There's totally a realm where that could be the case. So yeah. Jungle changes as well. So yeah, this river, bot side river as well, because I did say that the most of the changes are bot side. So I did briefly forget about this wall, but this wall is now different. This wall feels huge, by the way. When you're playing this, it feels so awkward in the river, and if you are on blue side, it feels so awkward. Like, enemies can jump over this wall, but the amount of vision, like wards that you need to place in order to have vision around this wall is absurd, because you need a ward in the brush, ward in the tri-brush, and then ideally you might need a ward behind the wall or in this brush at the back here as well to see if someone's going to jump over. The amount of vision that you need to lock down this area is kind of insane. So yeah, if you're able to secure like this brush here, that's going to be crazy, but the odds of you actually being able to do that are so low because control wards, oracles, etc. And by the time your team has then gone back down to do the dragon, it should be unlikely that you have control of that brush. So it's like vital that you had these other two brushes controlled, this tri-brush at the bottom and this curved brush and this big rock as well. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do and ward choices to do as a support. This pixel brush won't be that important when doing the actual dragon objective. It's going to be the actual tri-brush and the curved banana brush. I think we can just call this the banana brush. Okay, yeah, there's Infernal Dragon changes, so there's a new minigame now. So if it's going to be Infernal Soul, Infernal Cinders will spawn randomly on the map. Like, these are kind of like little red diamonds. They're quite similar to like the Infernal Cinders or whatever they're called in Diablo 4. If you don't play Diablo 4, those little cinders that you exchange in for at the chests, they look awfully similar to that. So you'll be picking up the cinders. If you kill an enemy player with cinders, they drop the cinders and you get to collect them. They give you ability haste per stack. So if you're able to collect a lot of these, your cooldown reduction should go down quite massively. But do note, if you die, you're going to drop a lot of them as well. So yeah. I think generally as a support, you're probably going to want to try and make sure that like your casters are going to get as many of these as possible. I think casters will benefit from this the most. Not to say like supports can't like use ability haste. It's just that ability haste this season in the items is harder to obtain. So your mid laners would greatly appreciate having the cinders. Supports will still be able to get a good chunk of ability haste, but the mid lane items now are kind of like a lot of the haste has been removed. So they're gonna ideally want to grab those if possible. So Hui's buff is you got armor increase. Pretty nice for bot lane, honestly. Hui's support is viable, but low ranking. But with the new item changes, might be stronger. Maybe. We'll have to find out. Right, so item changes going into League. The support item is getting changed. So Spell Thieves is getting changed. Relic Shield is getting changed. They don't exist in the game, but they kind of do. They've been merged into one item. There is no longer mythics in the game, but some of the items that were mythic are staying in the game. So, for example, you can buy a Shrillia's and a Moonstone and a Locket if you really want to. If you want to have all 3 of those items, then you can have them at the same time. So there's no restriction on those, but do note there's now no like unique mythic passive. So, for example, if you had Moonstone, for example, you got shield and heal power if you per the item that you've got completed in your inventory. We don't have that anymore. So there's no mythic bonus powers anymore. Okay, so the following items have been removed: Crown of the Shattered Queen, Everfrost, Leeching Leer, Demonic Embrace, which is quite a big one for like Brand and Zyra, and Stopwatch / Perfect Time Stopwatch. Now, Stopwatch is getting removed, but it's not, okay? From my understanding and remembering of this, Stopwatch is still in the game, it's just different, okay? So, new item. Okay, so Malignance, I covered this as in one of my videos. So you get a lot of haste for your ultimate, plus also you got 20 ability haste for all of your abilities, including your ultimate. Whenever you damage an enemy champion with your ultimate, burn the ground beneath them for 3 seconds, dealing 60 plus 6% AP magic damage every second and reducing their magic resistance by 1 per user level as long as they are burning on the ground. No, radius increase based on damage done. Okay, so if you can think of someone that has a very low cooldown ulti or has an ulti that can be spammed, they will use Malignance. First one that really comes to mind is Swain. Swain will be able to activate this every single time he damages someone with his ultimate. And in turn, he'll be putting down magic resistance, reducing pools down under their feet. And so say, for example, like Swain's support with Malignance could work really well if you have a team full of magic damage. So it will kind of act like an abyssal mask, essentially. Let me think. Like Brand as well could do okay. You're scattering that around a lot anyway. But I mean, generally overall as an item, it's fine. It's a little bit expensive as a support. You won't be taking this on enchanters, from what I can tell, and you won't be taking this on AD. So this is just going to be like a couple of outliner supports like the Swain could see a comeback because of Malignance. Luden's Companion. So this costs 3k gold. Gain a shot charge every 3 seconds up to a maximum of 6. Damaging abilities consume all shots to deal an additional 40 plus 8% AP magic damage to the target. 1 additional nearby enemy per charge. If there are no other targets in place, then the primary target takes a bit more damage. So once again, is another like pokey, like semi-bursty AP item. You can pick this up as support if you're playing AP. So like the Zyra, the Brand, could be a viable option. Seraph, all of those champions. Storm Surge. Now, Storm Surge is probably the best AP item coming into Season 14. He has magic penetration, 100 ability power, movement speed, But the passive is pretty bonkers. So, but you need to be able to deal enough damage in a short span of time in order to activate this. So once again, it's still going to be a little bit tricky sometimes doing it as a support because you won't have the levels. But if you're doing well already as support, say if you already got a kill, like I'd already be like looking into Storm Surge. Especially if you're playing a Spursy champions like Lux, for example, which should do really well with Storm Surge. Hui can also do quite well with this too. You've got Xerath has the potential if you've got a kill or two. Probably wouldn't necessarily lean towards this too much as Zyra. Bran can make this work. Zyra does a lot of chip damage over time, but you need to be able to do, as the passive says, dealing 35% of a champion's maximum health within 3 seconds. So like, for example, if you full catch someone at Zyra and then put down your ulti, you should probably be doing 35%. But the other champions that I mentioned can proc this easier without having to land the full combo. Or it's just easier just to do the full combo, like with Lux, for example. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily pick this up on Zyra, but everyone else, AP-wise, should do quite well with this. But yeah, that's still not to say like it won't work on Zyra. It can work on Zyra. It's just, it'd be easier to proc on the other champions. But yeah, so you do 35% of a champion's max health within 3 seconds, applies Storm Surge to them, and grants yourself 25% movement speed for 2 seconds, 30-second cooldown. Now the actual Storm Surge itself, after 2 seconds, Storm Surge strikes the target with lightning, dealing a bunch of damage plus 8 on AP ratio. If they die to the lightning or before lightning strikes, it detonates immediately in a large area around them and you gain 30 gold. Basically, mega extra burst when you do that. It's got a relatively low proc cooldown as well of 30 seconds. So yeah, Storm Surge was really fun to use. Really fun to use when testing on the PvE. So if you're looking at playing an AP support, do try and test this item out first. Anything else here to mention? The injuries are still in the game, but it's got nerfed a bit to monsters, just in case like you're jungling or something on Brand. But it should still be good though, Brand. You're still picking that up. Here's a lot of just like slight recipe. Okay, so this item sucks. Okay, I cannot figure out for the life of me to make this item work nice at all. So Crypt Bloom, 60 ability power, 10 haste, 30% magic penetration. There's an item that you would take instead of like Void Staff if you wanted if you needed penetration. Okay. The passive is what the thing I have the biggest issue with though, because whenever you get a takedown on an enemy champion within 3 seconds of damaging them, create a healing nova on their location that heals allies for 50 plus 50% AP ratio, 60-second cooldown. Big issues were it was like taking too long to detonate, or it basically like, say for example you killed someone, but they were already getting away, and then they died like in a random place out, and then it procs this, and then it goes on cooldown, and you killed nobody. Even if you get to heal somebody with Crypt Bloom, the amount is diabolically bad. It's horrendous. This item is absolutely garbage in my opinion. It needs giga buffing on the passive. Do not buy this over Void Staff in my opinion. Okay, I know this sounds utility. It's really bad in my opinion. It's just so bad. Okay, Shadow Flame got kind of changed. So magic damage and true damage critically strikes enemies below 35% health, dealing 20% increased damage. Increased to 30% increased damage for damage over time and pet effects. So if you're doing dots like Brand, this is really good. So this used to have the thing where it's like if the enemy had a shield, you do like more magic penetration to them. But now it just does like your spells can crit if they're below 35% health. So it's really good with dots. Really good with dots. So if you're running Leandries, if you're playing Brand, pretty good item to add and incorporate into your build. What else have we got here? We have Zhonya's is in the game. We were talking about the stasis earlier. It's still in the game. Don't worry. If you need it, it's still there. But they did increase the price and a good chunk where the AP ratio has gone up, but it's got no haste anymore. Right, so this is all the AP items. We basically got through it all. Anything else here to mention? Not really. Hull Breaker is still in the game. I don't think it's meant to be as strong as before, but we'll see. Trying to figure out if there's any other. I don't think there's many AD items here for us to look at. This experimental hex plate is interesting on something like Senna, but still is kind of meh. Yeah, like the new AD items don't really affect support, at least anyway, that much. So yeah, tank and support items. Okay. Remove Turbo Chem Tank. Radiant Virtue isn't in the game anymore, so you won't be picking that up on like Rakan and stuff anymore. Gargle Stone Plate, Aegis of the Legion, Even Shroud, Radiant Virtue again. They got Radiant Virtue was so OP, they got rid of it twice. Okay. And Lifewell Pendant. So we've got a new tank item here for 2,800 gold. So it's quite expensive to take as a support. Hollow Radiance. Taking or dealing damage causes you to begin dealing 10 plus bonus magic health damage per second to nearby enemies. So it's like a crappy Sunfire Cape. Killing an enemy, not a ward, not a structure, deals magic that. You probably won't be taking this on anybody. Okay, this Hollow Radiance, not for support. Unending Despair. While in combat with champions, every 7 seconds, deal a bunch of damage to random people and healing for 250% of the damage dealt. Probably won't be picking up on the support either. Kanic Rukaran. After not taking damage for 12 seconds, gain a magic shield for 20% of your health. Now this one could be interesting if you are urgently needing magic resistance against like a heavy AP team. 80 magic resistance is pretty goddamn nice, and then having this giant magic shield for 20% of your health, very, very good anti-AP item. Now this is an item that you may want to consider taking on as support. Heartsteel, still in the game. Trailblazer, okay. So when I tested this item out, and I thought it was literally the worst item in the game. Trailblazer was really bad. I don't imagine it's going to stay in its current form, honestly, but it's the support tank item. It costs 2,400 gold. They're pretty cheap. 250 health, 40 armor, 5% bonus movement speed. Passive, lead the way. While moving, build up to 20 bonus movement speed. And maximum stacks, leave a trail that raises allies' champions' movement speed by 15% of your movement speed. Your next attack discharges built up movement speed for melee champions at top speed. The attack also slows the target by 50%. So it's kind of like the Dead Man's Plate. But maybe a little bit more movement speed on. But when I was using this item, it still felt pretty bad. I think if you are wanting to play a very, very heavy roam build, like you're roaming around with Alistair or something, I can see Trailblazer being okay. That's about it, really. Honestly, like, you have to be giga roaming with this. Absolutely giga roaming this as a support. So we'll see how it goes. But like, just generally using this item did feel pretty bad. Zeke's Convergence did get changed. New passive on this item. This now looks a bit more viable because I know many people, including myself, weren't really picking up the Zeke's because the passive was kind of bad. But this makes the item a lot more interesting. So when you cast your ultimate, you gain an ice storm around yourself for 5 seconds. The storm deals 50 magic damage per second, but it slows enemies inside for 30%. So the damage is like whatever. There's a 30% slow around yourself. So it's kind of like having a Glacial Augment. So if you're not running Glacial Augment in a game and you feel like, oh yeah, I could really use a Glacial Augment, take this because it makes up for that. Don't forget slows don't add up together. So if you already got Glacial Augment, there's no point having Zeke's, in my opinion. Because by the time you've gone in, and you probably... Say you're playing Rakan, right? And you've cast your ultimate. And then you're going in, and then it's... Like, the first person that you hit, you're going to proc Glacial Augment on them. But this Ice Storm isn't going to additionally slow them anymore than Glacial Augment already is. So you only want Zeke's Convergence if you don't already want Glacial Augment. but you feel like when you're already in game, you need the extra CC and slows and stuff to keep them in place. So it means you can go like Guardian and then go like Zeke's, and then you have like Guardian and kind of a Glacial Augment. So yeah, it's not a bad item now as long as you don't already have Glacial Augment running. Pocket of the Iron Solari. The aura has been removed. The item is basically the same with a tiny bit less ability haste. It's still a pretty good item in my opinion, as long as you're popping the shield for when it's needed. Wall Mogs, don't buy it on support. Direct Show, don't buy that on support. Dead Man's Plate, you don't need this item now because you got the other one, the much cheaper one, so don't go Dead Man's Plate either. Randuin's can have a situation when it's useful. If you're going up a lot against a lot of crit damage champions, like say if you're playing against a Kindred and a I don't know, an AD carry that has crit. Like if you're playing at least against 2 crits, go Randuin's. But I don't know if this affects the AP item. We did mention that AP item that crits when a champion is below X amount of HP. This might help block that a little bit, maybe. So yeah, even though it's an AP item and this is like a full armor item, just something to throw in there and add. Force of Nature is an okay magic resist item, but I think if you want magic resistance now, I would urge you take the new one, which is called this Chaotic Rukin. I think is like #1 MVP against magic damage now. Winter's Approach has been reduced in gold by 200, so Tonic got a buff. Just throwing out there. Not many people use the tier. So yeah, if you can think of a tank champion that can use tier, might be kind of interesting to use Winter's Approach. Just saying. Stats have been unchanged. 200 gold buff. Just saying. It's actually a pretty good item. It's actually a pretty good item. So even if it takes a little while for you to stack the tier, it is a good item. The Fimbulwinter is pretty good extra shield when you're going in. Like could be viable on Leona, honestly. Sunfire, you shouldn't be buying that. Knight's Vow, same as before, just very meh item, just meh. Zeke's got changed, which was nice, but Knight's Vow is just kind of meh. Alright, assassin items, we don't really care that much about that, do we? It's like Pike, but who here plays Pike, right? Marksman items got changed a little bit. Nothing really that dramatic for Senna. Alright, support item. Okay, here we go. Right, the bit that you've been waiting for. The support item quest has been changed. We now have this item called World Atlas. Okay. Now, when testing this item out on PBE, 2 really big things to take note of. Okay. So the way it works now is it's a relic shield and a spell thief at once. But you still have the same kind of like charge system. So every 18 seconds, you get a charge, stacking up to 3. If you hit a champion or a structure, you get a bunch of gold, right? If you decide to last hit a minion, you will give the full amount of gold of that minion to so you might as well use their own wording here. The nearest allied champion gets the same amount of gold as if they had killed it themselves. Okay? So if you're last hitting a cannon minion, okay, they will still get 60 gold. Okay. You, however, will get like 20 gold. So it's incentivizing you still to hit enemy champions and hitting structures. You will get more gold doing that. You will get more gold hitting an enemy champion than you will do from killing a minion. But it being able to manipulate the wave, especially and helping your AD carry last hit under turret, will be priority still. Okay, so if your AD carry can't get to a cannon minion and you can make relic shield pocket for them, do it, because the amount of gold there that your AD carry miss out is way too much. Okay, so you're still going to want to ideally like use like a charge to last hit cannon minions to guarantee the cannon minion. You'll still get 20 gold, but at least your AD carry will get the cannon minion. The other two charges, ideally you're using those to harass the enemy to get gold. But if you can't do that, say for example you are mega poked under turret, you're stuck under turret the entire game. Imagine a scenario of like you're playing Janna and you've got spell thieves, right, in season 13, and you're stuck under turret and it's really, really difficult to harass and get the gold charges. Enemy support is getting to hit your turret and they're getting to get the gold, but you're just stuck there and you can't do anything. Now you can last hit the minions under the turret, secure the gold as if you had relic shield, and you will only be missing out on a marginal amount rather than a huge amount of gold. So overall, it will keep a losing support closer in terms of the actual quest, if that makes sense. So you can choose to either attack the enemy or last hit minions in order to generate gold. Okay, your AD carry will still get the full amount of gold from minion kills. The second thing I want to talk about this item is laning phase level 1 has changed. You don't get the first charge until really late. So if you've played with Relic Shield before, you should be familiar, but by the time the second wave comes in, you would have generated 2 charges already on your support item in order to help, push in the lane a bit quicker. The first initial charge comes in much slower. I think it only kicks in at like 2 minutes when the wave is already like met for 10 seconds in the lane. So it takes longer to get the second charge. So you'll only really be having like 1 charge before you're hitting level 2. So there won't be as many like jump scares going into like level 2 sudden XP burst with someone using Relic Shield to get the level 2 advantage. 3 things to actually take note of this. So this item also generates gold slower on the passive when you're hitting people and doing, taking their minions and stuff, because you're not getting cannon minion gold from Relic Shield, for example. The gold generation is actually slower, but once you hit 500 gold, the World Atlas gets converted into the item where you've got 3 ward charges into the runic compass. And you're actually getting a few different things here. So you're going from 3 gold per turn to 5 gold per turn. Also, you're getting more gold against champions from 34, 32, from 30 to 28. So you're getting a little bit extra gold. So you're actually, the progress from World Atlas to Runic Compass feels a lot slower than going from Runic Compass to Bounty of Worlds, which is like the full item completion. That makes sense. So going from 0 to 500 is like it feels slow, but then it speeds up dramatically after that. So this is the final item, Bounty of Worlds. Bounty of Worlds gives you a free item. Okay, so there are once you get 1,000 gold, you get to choose one of these extra passive procs to have on you while you still have the item on you. So when you've completed your item, when you've done your support quest, you get to choose one of these items. So you got some tanking ones here, you got some damaging ones, and I think you got some utility ones here too. So you're going to want to kind of preemptively know what you're wanting to go into. So this is why it's like quite important that you understand like now before you go into game which one of these you're going to be taking and what they even do, because you don't want to be spending like 2 minutes figuring out which item of these to take and then be weaker because you're still deciding. So when you've fully completed your support item, you can choose one of these 5 items. First one being Celestial Opposition. Blessing of the Mountain. Become blessed to reduce incoming champion damage by 35% if you're melee, or 25% if you're ranged, lingering for 2 seconds after taking damage from a champion. When the shield breaks, unleash a shockwave around you that slows enemies by 50% for 1.5 seconds. 20-second cooldown once you've left combat. So this is like the crown proc, the mythic AP item proc, which is no longer in the game, by the way. It's like that passive, but with like extra things. So you're just reducing damage for 2 seconds, and you get this AoE slow. So Yeah, pretty good. Honestly, it's pretty good passive. If you're worried about a lot of assassins, and maybe you're like playing Soraka or something like that, taking 25% less damage initially from bursts could be pretty useful, and then the enemy assassins are slowed, so it's going to be harder for them to get away. So, could be an option. Also pretty good when you're going in as a tank. If you're going in as a tank, you're going to be taking 35% less damage initially. If you're still inside there, you're going to be slowing around in an aura, which would also mean that you won't have to go Glacial Open or Zeke's, by the way, because then you have this slow. So, yeah. We also have Solstice Slay. Slowing or immobilizing an enemy champion grants you and a nearby ally with the lowest amount of health, 120 bonus health and 90 movement speed for 4 seconds. I don't like this one personally. I can see it maybe like if you're playing with like a Jhin or an Ashe or someone who wants like a lot of movement speed, like maybe like a Jinx and immobile AD carry. You're going in, speeds them up to help them get in. Maybe get out as well. Could be a way to get out. So if you've been ganked, you can CC someone and then you can get out. So kiting and ally protection is this one, okay? Could also like use that on like Nami, for example, and a defensive Nami or a defensive Janna, for example. So you slow someone, and then you get the 100. You and your ally get the 120 bonus health and the 90 movement speed to try and zip out of there as quickly as possible. Could be quite nice. Bloodsong. After using an ability, your next attack is enhanced with 150 base AD on hit. If this target is a champion, apply exposed weakness, increasing the damage they take by 12% or 8% for 6 seconds. So this is the first thing that really comes to mind here is like Senna. I think Senna would quite like Bloodsong overall. You got the 150 base AD proc, which is pretty nice. On a 1.5 second cooldown, and if they're an enemy champion, then they're going to be taking 8% more damage for 6 seconds. So if you wanted to play like an aggressive Senna here, for example, or any kind of like aggressive physical damage champion, really, with lots of auto attacks, then yeah, so like maybe like Ashe or something like that could become coming back with this. But the first thing that really comes to mind is Senna for Bloodsong. I don't think many other supports will utilize this one. So overall, you're probably not. Like maybe even Pike seems a little bit meh with this, honestly. So yeah, like mainly a Senna item, this Bloodsong. You can probably rule that out for the majority of supports, really. Dream Maker. So this is like your healing one. Okay, so I did test this out a few times with like Soraka and Sona, and it seemed perfectly fine to do. So Dream Maker, gain a blue dream bubble and a purple dream bubble every 8 seconds. Healing and shielding another ally blows both dream bubbles to them and empowers them for 3 seconds. Blue bubble reduces their damage taken by 140 on the next hit, and purple grants 90 bonus magic damage on the next hit. So it's like it makes your ally tankier and do a bit more damage. Just every 8 seconds, it'd feel like a little bit long to proc, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think this probably needs to be moved down to like 6 seconds. But yeah, overall, it was just like, if you're playing Soraka or Sona anyway, you're blowing your teammates with bubbles, with bubbles, okay, on the regular, okay. So it's like a very generic healy item. So this one here is the AP support. If you're playing AP support, ignore everything above. If you want to play Zyra Brand, this is the one for you. So dealing ability damage to a champion causes an explosion at the current location that damages the target and nearby enemies. Dealing 50 plus 3% maximum health magic damage. Capped to get 300 against monsters. 9 to 6 second cooldown. This was really fun to play with the Storm Surge item, the AoE explosion. Lots on AoE. This item, if you're playing any AP support, ignore everything above. Take this one. Take this one for damage and fun, okay? Dreammaker generic Enchanter item. Bloodsong Senna. Solstice Slay, if you're worried about like being ganked a lot, and maybe you've been ganked a lot in lane and you're just kind of sick of it and you just want to be able to like kind of peel away, can be pretty good. If you're up against assassins, and worried about being one shot, this could also be an option on Sona or Soraka in particular as well. Or if you want an extra slow to go in if you're playing a tank, the Celestial. So hopefully that kind of gives you like an idea of what kind of champions are going to be utilizing these items. So I think the biggest ones are the best ones are this one for AP. Don't even have to talk about it, right? I think the Celestial Opposition is going to be very good if you're... honestly, I think overall, if you're playing tank, I probably would be leaning towards Celestial Opposition anyway. It seems the strongest as a tank. That means you don't have to go Zeke's. It means you probably don't need to necessarily go Glacial Augment as well. It just seems generically like just quite good for tanks anyway. I think Solstice Slayer is very niche. Bloodsong is very, very niche too. And Dreammaker is just generically like okay. Like it just feels okay. It's just okay. So yeah, I think if you're playing Enchanter, Dreammaker Solstice is probably the one that you're going to be using the most unless you're like giga worried about assassins. So you can cut some assassins with this. Enchanter items. The following items have been removed: Chemtech Putrefier and Chalice of Harmony. Well, Chalice didn't last very long, did it? So there are now these little there are the new component items called Glowing Mote. They only cost 250 gold, but they only give 5 ability haste, but they add up in your inventory space and it's really annoying. This item's annoying as hell. Glowing Mote. You'll grow to hate these. Yeah. It'd be more like a growing hate mote. Sorry, it's been a long video already. Dawn Core. Okay, this is the enchanter item. New enchanter item coming in. Builds off 2 Bandle Glass mirrors. 700 gold extra. But you get 40 ability power, 20 haste, a ton of magic regeneration. But the big one here is the passives. You've got gain 3% heal and shield power every 5 ability power. Oh, sorry. Gain 3% heal and shield power and 5 ability power per 100% base mana regeneration. Okay, hold on, let me just have a sip of water because this is in my mind. Okay. So this is kind of like what Chalice was doing in a way, right? So Chalice, if you had mana regeneration, you got health regeneration. Instead here, we're getting percent healing and shield power and ability power. But you need 100% mana regeneration per. So with Chalice before, you could only just have like 25% or 50%. You need 100% base mana regeneration. Okay. Also, it's got Summoner Spell Haste, gain 18 Summoner Spell Haste. This is OP because you can also run Boots of Lucidity. I'm very excited about playing this season 14 because this stacks with CDR boots. So you're going to have a lot of extra Summoner Spell Haste. If you run this with CDR boots and Cosmic Insight, I believe also reduces Summoner Haste. So you can get your hastes down on, you can have your flash up way sooner. Way sooner. You can have your secondary like ability like heal or exhaust on a much lower cooldown as well. You're going to be able to use your exhaust or heal like twice the amount you'd normally be able to use it essentially in the game. So your exhaust will basically be able to be used pretty much every single team fight, probably the same with summon heal as well. So yeah, really looking forward to using Dawn Core. Dawn Core was very cool. Echoes of Hylia. So the passive dissonance was removed. So that was the extra ability power that per mana regeneration. So the extra AP has been removed, but they're giving some extra AP back anyway in the item from 30 to 40 and a bit of extra haste. Echoes of Hylia. So it's a bit cheaper now, which is nice. So damaging a champion grants a soul shard up to 2. Healing or shielding an ally consumes all soul shards and restores health per shard and deals 30 to 180 magic damage per shard to the enemy. To damaging a champion grants a soul shard up to 3. So okay, so that I was gonna say that seems exactly what we have at the moment. So what is going to be happening now is damaging a champion grants a soul shard up to a maximum of 3. So we're going from 2 to 3 shards. Healing or shielding an ally consumes all soul shards and restores 20 health and deals 55 magic damage per shard to the nearest enemy champion. So the Soul Siphon passive did get nerfed, which kind of sucks. But it is a little bit cheaper, and you got a tiny bit of extra haste on the top. I would argue like Echoes of Hylia wasn't really used that often coming out to the end of season 13. I don't think many champions were really utilizing Echoes. I think Nami now, like, I think this will be like a later item because it's now like, it was a mythic, but now it's not. I think Nami will pick this up like later on. You could argue like some other Enchanter or Enchanter hybrid champions, maybe like Seraphine or something, might end up taking this later on, but you won't be taking this item early. Like Dawn Core is an item that you would want early, like, because this haste is great and everything, right? Everything about this item is great. It is expensive. It's worth it though. Echoes of Hylia is cheaper, but this proc is just like kind of, it's just okay. It's just like an okay item. It's very, you know, if you're just like, you know, going through school, just trying to get C's, this is the item. This is the C item. It's like, it's okay. You'll use it sometimes on some enchanters, but on the whole, like Dawn Core is the star pupil. Okay. Staff of Flowing Water, 200 gold increase, but extra mana regeneration, which is going to help with the Dawn Core. They have extra AP. What have they done? Healing or shielding allied champions, excluding the user, grants the user. So it's basically you can't heal and shield yourself. Grants the user and allied champions 30 ability power and 10% bonus movement speed over 3 seconds. So they've removed, they've reduced the amount of AP and they've reduced the amount of haste, but they've given movement speed. But they've also removed movement speed on the actual item itself. Overall, a little nerf. I think Staff of Flowing Water was very strong. It was stronger than Ardent by a good margin. Staff of Flowing Water is still going to be very, very good on a lot of champions like Sona, for example. Sona was kick-ass, and she still will be kick-ass with this item. I think movement speed is a very underrated stat as well. Losing 20 ability haste though is a lot, especially when mid laners are going to be struggling with ability haste at the moment anyway, so losing that kind of sucks, and also it being put down to 30 from a maximum potentially of 45. Yeah, I don't know, it did get nerfed. This item overall got nerfed. It's nice that we got a little bit of extra mana regeneration here to work with Dawn Core, but the gold increase does hurt us a little bit too. So Staff of Flowing Water, honestly gone from like S tier enchanter item down to maybe like a B+. Like it's still good if you are able to spam abilities on your teammates and get that off, but generally like Sona, yes. Everything else, if you're running a lot of APs on your team, still going to be like okay, but still kind of Ardent Sensor also had its gold increase. Mana regeneration went up. Ability power went up by a bigger margin, so 40 on Staff of Flowing Water, 50 on Ardent on base, but you know, don't forget you've also got the ability power on the proc though itself. Bonus movement speed increased on Ardent, whereas Staff of Flowing Water on itself doesn't have movement speed, but does have it on the proc. So healing or shielding allied champions grants you and them 25 bonus attack speed and 20 bonus damage for 4 seconds. So they've actually buffed the proc on Ardent. An extra 5% attack speed, an extra 5% magic bonus, and they just generically overall buffed Ardent plus 15 AP, plus 50 mana regeneration, plus 3% movement speed. Ardent went from C to kind of B+. I think they've actually done a really good job bridging the gap between Staff of Flowing Water and Ardent. Like before, I would generally say like, you know, if you have a lot of AD carries on your team, you want to go Ardent. It's kind of crappy to do Ardent. The Staff of Flowing Water gives you nice like selfish stats. But yeah, now like Ardent Sensor is actually like a really good item. Like definitely on par with Staff of Flowing Water. Definitely very, very similar statage. I think they've actually done a really good job balancing these items now. They look very, very similar in terms of power. Because I've always generically said, like, overall between these two items before, Staff of Flame Water was clearly better than Ardent overall, but now this is bridged. This is definitely bridged, so you definitely will be picking up Staff of Flame Water still if you have a lot of ability power on your team. I think Staff of Flame Water is also still overall going to be still slightly better if you're selfish. But Ardent, if you got ADs on your team that are doing well, auto-attacking champions, Ardent, very good right now. Okay, and yeah, we've got a new rune by the way as well. Instead of stopwatch rune, we've got triple tonic. Triple tonic is quite interesting. So at level 3, you gain an elixir of avarice. So on use, gain 5 true damage on hit against minions. So that doesn't affect you as a support, but you get 40 gold at the end of the elixir. At level 6, you get an elixir that gives you 20 adaptive force for 60 seconds. So that gives you a bunch of AP probably, depending on what champion you're playing. At level 9, gain an elixir of skill. On use, gain a skill point. So, if you are running inspiration secondaries, this could be actually an item to pick up because of this elixir of skill. We all know, as a support, it's basically nearly impossible to hit level 18. Your top laner will hit 18, your mid laner will hit 18, even your AD carry could probably hit 18, you're probably like level 16 still. So if you have your third ability that you're leveling up is still actually quite good to put points in, then going elixir of skill can actually be very, very valuable. Champions are kind of thinking of, like, off the top of my head, Zillion. Zillion would actually like this quite a lot. Why? Because generally you do like 3 points in Q and your bomb to do damage in lane, and then you're maxing your E, which is to slow people down or speed an ally up. And then you want to have your W max second properly because you want to have the cooldown on rewind to be able to do your Q and E a little bit more often. Having an extra skill point means that you get an extra point in your W sooner, which means lower cooldowns. So like that's a good example of how, like, it's nice to have the extra ability because putting in the point in your third ability is still pretty good. I think this could be okay on Sona. I think even Soraka can benefit from this as well, from having like an extra point on her Q earlier, maybe as well, could be good. I don't think many tanks would care about this. I can't think of any tank that would care about having an extra point in their abilities on their third point, on their third allocated stat. Usually the third tank stats are pretty bad. Nami won't care as well. She won't care about having an extra point in her Q later on into the game. Because that doesn't reduce the cooldown of a Q, I don't think. I think it just increases damage. I think Sona 1% extra movement speed on the E isn't bad at all. Soraka mentioned earlier. Don't think Senna would care too much. AP mages, maybe make a small argument with a few of them. Like Seraph could be okay, maybe. But yeah, there's a couple of enchanters there I think that could be quite nice, like the Zillion that I mentioned. There might be one or two other people there I didn't mention as well that could benefit from this quite nicely. But yeah, there's totally a realm here where you can go triple tonic on support. I recommend to try out and see how it feels for you. So get an extra 40 gold. You get the adaptive force elixir, but the main one is just this elixir of skill here at level 9, which, you know, getting level 9 as support shouldn't be a problem unless you're AFK in Fountain. So towers have been on the more fragile end for a while now, but with the addition of more tower damage coming from Voidgrubs, we thought it was time to give them a bit more durability. We want towers to feel like something that you can actually protect and reduce how easy it is for some teams to immediately win by blasting through 3 towers. We're also adjusting the backdoor bonus, reduce damage to towers when there are no nearby allied minions, to be more potent, as is often being ignored by champions later into the game. Now it will also apply true damage rather than entirely nullifying it, so it's consistent across all damage types. So towers have got buffed. Towers are just a bit more pog. Ranked changes. Now these are things I haven't actually paid attention to. Narrowing Emerald tier. So if you don't know, if you didn't play in Season 13, Riot added an Emerald tier, which was in between Platinum and Diamond. So it went Platinum, Emerald, Diamond. What that was meant to be in place for is to help make it so it wasn't so congested around Silver and Gold, and to try and push, like, spread people out in terms of the brackets a bit more, so more people ended up in Gold last season, more people ended up in Silver last season, and Plat, essentially, is what happened. So what have they done? Well, overall, we believe the new Emerald tier is accomplishing our goal of spreading out the ladder. The range of skill levels within Emerald is currently a bit too wide, so they're going to try and tighten the make it maybe a bit more exclusive to be an Emerald. Okay. While promoting ranks was made easier in 2023, there weren't any adjustments to demotions, which led to some players having much higher visible ranks than their actual MMR. To correct this, demoting has been made a little easier to help avoid situations where a player could have a visible rank of Platinum but actually have Silver MMR. There you go, guys. It's going to be harder to climb this season. So yeah. Modified LP gains. The LP gain increased to ±25 per game reintroduced last year has done a good job of helping players move up or down a division within a season, is that what to say? Whatever. Which we're currently pretty happy with. That said, we've learned that this amount of LP isn't sustainable in tiers Emerald and above. Due to this, LP gains at Emerald tier and above have been decreased to roughly 20 per... That's for me! So they basically made it harder to climb once you hit Emerald. So they're gonna... Basically, they want the game to be a bit more grindy, so you have to play more games of League of Legends. That's what I'm reading. So, yay. We've updated on how players are placed in ranked, which should place them closer to their appropriate skill level. Alright, so if you're Iron, you will be an Iron. Oh yeah, this is a fun new emote that they did add to the game. They got this, it looks a bit weird, but when I was playing it in game, it's kind of cool. You get the option to do this fist bump, and other people can join in, and you can fist bump with like more than one person. That's kind of cool. It's free. It's a free emote as well, so you don't have to pay for it, but I can see them adding more emotes that are like this, so yeah, be on the lookout for more emotes that end up doing something like that. They did add a little bit more of music to League. When I was playing, I did play it with the music on, and I didn't hear that much difference, but maybe they've upped it since then on PvE. So turn off your Spotify, put the League of Legends music on, okay? Oh, they added more in-game quests. This was fun. I don't actually know anything about this, but they've added more in-game quests. So there was one for Hui and Jin that got implemented when the Hui got released. But basically there's like these little mini games now. So like versus Belveth and Jax. Like you usually get like a very minor reward for being the person who wins on the quest. So both players would get like a quest equivalent to them, and then yeah, then whoever does it first gets like an extra like minor buff. So you can read all about these in the patch notes. There's an Estus and Renekton one. The Shen and Zed one there too. I'm sure they add more. They're quite fun to do in the actual game itself. And they do happen in ranked as well. Is that everything? Did we get through everything? I think we did. Well, we did it. Okay, so my kind of hypotheses going into this season is that AP mages support-wise got buffed. Okay. I don't know if it's just because it felt more fun to play, but this Zazak's Realm Spike on support item completion was quite fun. So playing Brand and Zyra and Hui support, I'm sure the others are the same. Like, and then combining that with the other AP item, which was if I can find it, Storm Surge, really fun. Really fun. So if you like playing Zyra and Brand, or like any AP support, have fun this next patch, because there are a lot of fun items and stuff to test out. So yeah, playing Enchanters on the whole it will feel similar to what we currently do. It feels like, okay, Dawn Core is a really nice item to go. This Dawn Core item, Giga Chad, if you're playing Soraka, if you're playing Sona, in particular those two champions, like I feel like Soraka and Sona are going to stand out with this Dawn Core. Dawn Core is really fun to use. Echoes is meh. Ardent changes also are going to affect stuff like also like Milio. Also going to benefit from Dawn Core. So Milio is also going to be pretty good too. You can easily apply all of this stuff as well, especially Ardent being buffed as well with the Milio. Looking good for Milio for sure. Like Lulu, slight Lulu buffs here too. Enchanters overall have had it like nice. I think Nami is probably maybe the biggest loser of the enchanters, which is a shame because I like Nami. But Nami overall I think is not really getting much this patch. But I think the other enchanters, there is something for everyone apart from Nami really. Tank supports. I'm sorry, but the items are kind of garbage still. Tank support, when I tried it on PvE, it felt bad. I'm gonna be blunt, it felt bad. The only tank support item really that got like kind of like this AP one is interesting. It's super expensive though. This Trailblazer item, this is the only new support item really, and it felt bad. It felt really bad. Like I don't mind playing like stuff like, you know, Thresh and Rakan and, you know, the occasional whatever hard like Leona and stuff, but it felt bad. And also when you've got Glacial Augment and then Zeke's doing this slow, and then you've got the support item as well from the support quest, the Celestial Opposition also doing the 50% slow. There's too much of the same. There's a rune, there's two items doing the same thing. And the other tank kind of support items here are not really good. The next option is this Slay. Like these support item upgrades just feel bad. It's just all kind of it's not great. So yeah, tank supports weren't really that great until like Diamond Plus anyway. So if you weren't playing tanks anyway, then you're not going to be missing out on much. But yeah, tanks, I will say it one last time, tanks just feel kind of not good to play right now. So I probably won't be playing that much tank unless we get like a change here or something. So a lot of my support videos in the next 2 weeks on the patch I will probably do like 1 or 2 tank, but it's mainly going to be Enchanter and Mage. Okay. So champions that I think that in particular that are going to be looking strong Enchanter wise: Sona, Soraka, Milio. Mages, there's no reason to think that Zyra shouldn't still be very good this patch because she was S tier the whole of last season. Zyra probably very, very good still. Brand very good in Iron to Gold. I think the other mage support should be doing okay here still as well. Should be really fun to play, like Seraph, for example. I think Hui's support is still a little bit like, I wouldn't necessarily recommend him playing, but he's like a tier 3-ish right now, I think. But yeah, generally the other AP, the normal AP mages are still fine to play as support. And then tanks, the best tank is probably still going to be Rakan. I don't see that changing. I think Leon is looking a little bit more interesting. But yeah, those are like the main two that I'm thinking of if you are anywhere between like the unranked to Emerald from ending last season. So yeah, that's the kind of like tier list that I'm like envisaging right now. It's still very kind of similar still to the previous season, but I think, I don't know, like in terms of like actual fun value, AP supports, enchanters, tanks. Yeah, I think AP supports is going to be super fun to play. Honestly, the new item, the Zizak thing, and then having the Storm Surge, just so many like little proc items that you can take, and then yeah, and then the extra minor increase in gold as well. like from 5 gold per 10 seconds on the completed support item. It's nice. It actually felt quite nice playing enchanters and mages in particular in the PvE, more so than on live, than on season 13. Tanks did feel just worse. So we'll have to wait and see, and hopefully in a couple of patches times that might get adjusted. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this long video. How long was this? This was 1 hour and 15 minutes long. Thank you very much for supporting me. I will be streaming every single day for the rest of my life of League of Legends on twitch.tv/Bizzleberry. I will also be streaming on YouTube. And also we are doing like some community evening stuff, like we did some ARAMs the last few evenings on Discord. So discord.gg/Bizzleberry. Yeah, sorry, my brain is just anyway, all the best, guys. I was streaming tomorrow. Yeah, stream, watch me. Okay, get good. And I'll be covering season 14 for the support, new items, everything. I'll cover. All right, I'll cover everything. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going crazy. All right, love you guys. Thank you for the support, and see you tomorrow for another video, and hopefully it'll be a season 14 video. Bye.